baby. I'm getting it set up. Thank you very much. All right, it should be up now. All right, I forgot to turn on the timer. We're a little bit behind today. Okay, baby.
Mendoza giving it a look, finds the railing and he tumbles over, but he made the catch. Unbelievable, Evan Mendoza.
Gran jugada en Evan Mendoza, dos joyas defensivas.
Evan Mendoza makes a great
rounded up the middle. Mendoza throws out the shortstop. Mendoza field spins through.
Mendoza throw to first in time. Wow, what a play by Evan Mendoza.
Short. Mendoza to second for one. Oh my word, you've got to be kidding.
Evan Mendoza.
For Mendoza lifts one to left.
An inning.
Mendoza, that one's sailing back there, and it's gone.
Now, those are some of the plays and the insights of playing baseball at the highest level, not just posting about it. Now, let's flip the script. Here's what my students and families have to say about working with me.
Just share his stories of the kids asking him, what did you do? And his one answer was one word. Evan.
It's an overall great program to improve your metrics, mental approach, your velocity, and your outreaching strategies. Because there's a ton of players I know that are way better than me that had zero offers because they don't know how to reach out to coaches.
Pretty much every possible number when I've gone up. I was high 70s and now I'm aiming for mid to high 80s and hitting the same thing. I was high 80s off machine and now I'm able to put some balls out in the mid 90s.
JT's motivation to want to do it at home, be proactive in his baseball career, and we are able to do these things for him, and it's self-motivated and he's taken that action. As a parent, you want to be able to say yes to something like that.
It's been making me feel much more confident. Like now going into the season, I feel I have all the ability I need and I can just play and trust that all the work I did will pay off.
I started working out, I was about 120, 115, about 160 now. I trusted it and it worked. If you want to go get it, it's not going to come to you.
My EV was about 75 and my body weight was around 155, around that. Since I joined that, I'm up to almost 180 now and I'm hitting 80s, around mid 80s.
How much more kind of committed he was and how much more confident
All
he
right,
became
welcome
in progress.
in. Hope everyone's having a great day today. Welcome back to another episode of Coffee and Baseball, guys. This is my favorite thing that we get to do. So I'm going to go ahead and do that favorite thing, which is ultimately hammering away. We're going to have to actually just change up this entire area right here. We'll go day 10 of 50. Double digits, let's go. Luke, hope everyone is having a great day. Luke, thanks for joining in. Guys, this is where you guys get your questions asked and answered. Coffee and Baseball. Sometimes we like to go ahead and create some questions. So I'm going to go ahead and do that so that way you guys don't feel like you have to be the first person to ask a question. And that's totally okay, guys. I want to make sure that you guys get the best baseball knowledge possible. And for those that don't know, my name is Evan Mendoza. I played 7 years of professional baseball between the St. Louis Cardinals and San Diego Padres. I want to be able to give you guys that knowledge and share that knowledge with you. So do you actually have a recruiting plan, or are you just hoping something clicks? So no, with recruiting, in the regards of recruiting and wanting to make sure that we have a strategy, what we really want to make sure that we're doing is, these people over here who are coaches, right? We need to get in front of these coaches, right? And a lot of high school baseball players especially don't get in front of these college coaches, or you just simply don't know how to get in front of these college baseball coaches, right? So these are the things that I teach inside my academy to, what this process ultimately looks for, or looks like, I should say, because a lot of people just don't simply do that. How do you work even though everything's closed in this snowstorm? Jacko. So first and foremost, guys, I want to break it down because in the snow, This is when you can either get laser focused or you can kind of just do what everyone else is doing, which is playing a lot of video games, watching Netflix, watching movies, and being lazy, right? So in the snowstorms, because I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, grew up a decent amount in my childhood in Maryland, this is where we can become resourceful. What do we have available to us? And most times in a home, you'll have a floor, right? You'll have a floor to be able to do push-ups, to be able to do sit-ups, to be able to stay active. Maybe you'll be able to do a ladder drill or something in that regards of, you know, making sure that we have a little bit better footwork. There are ways to get work in without having the fanciest gym or without, you know, swinging in a cage or without, you know, doing all that stuff. Like, for example, if there's a sidewalk, and let's just say that this is a sidewalk right here, and there, you know how sidewalks usually have like cuts in it, and you're not supposed to necessarily step on one of them, right? But let's just use this one, for example, because it's a little bit darker, right? We'll change up colors as well. Because one thing that you can do is have both of your feet just like this. And very, very simply, you can do a, like kind of like a scissor sprint move, right? You can go right foot right here and then left foot right here. And basically what you're doing is just alternating, staying on the balls of your feet and ultimately just tapping on one side, one side, one side. And you're trying to do that for 15 seconds. And then after 15 seconds, maybe it becomes a little bit easier. Then you do it for 20 seconds, right? So if you're in the snow, we can create this line of inside the sidewalk or on the sidewalk at your home, right? Like right now, I'm looking at my floor right now. There's subtle lines in it. Some of you guys might have tile flooring where there might be some, you know, like almost like a caulk in between. But ultimately, you find those lines or you create those lines. Maybe you get some duct tape, maybe you get some painter's tape, and you basically put it out there on the floor. And if it's snowing outside, then awesome. Great. You get to see the snow just like it is out here for me as well in North Carolina. But this is where we create these games, so to speak, to make it as, you know, engaging as possible when we're reaching out, when snow is on the ground and, you know, facilities are closed, which happens, guys. That is part of the process. And this is also part of the process, guys. We're on day 10 already. I'm extremely happy with how this progress has been, or how this has been progressing. Very, very enjoyable to be able to talk to you guys, to be able to share some knowledge, to be able to go through some mental hurdles of, let's say, you know, it's snowing outside. It happens, right? So I want you guys to be able to feel comfortable asking these questions with me, because this is where we build relationships. And at the end of the day, I want you to, I forgot. I always like to keep this as like one layer. So that way I can always just make new layers, and that top right, it will be able to stay perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And guys, if you have any baseball related questions, feel free to ask. Again, this is the exact reason why I'm doing this. I want to make sure that you guys get that knowledge on everything that you got going on. So do you know which level of college baseball actually fits my son right now? Like, I don't know that based off of that question, because there's a lot of things that go through a college coach's mind before making an offer, right? So like the holy grail is right here. Like, you want this offer, but there's these micro steps along the way. Micro step, micro step, micro step. And then maybe we're going to start making some progress. Micro step, micro step, micro step. And then micro step, micro step. We're getting closer. We're getting these micro steps. Maybe it feels like we're like right there, and then boom, we get that offer, right? So these micro steps might be like an email, which is like the very beginning stages of a lot of high school baseball players. What was big league baseball fun? So Gavin, I never really made it up to the big league stage. There were times where I was practicing basically with the team at Busch Stadium. For those that don't know, that's the St. Louis Cardinals home field. There were also times in big league spring training and with the Cardinals and with the Padres where I was rubbing shoulders with guys like Tatis Machado, Juan Soto, Yadier Molina, Paul Goldschmidt, Arenado, like all the guys that you've seen on TV, and, you know, been able to learn from those guys, which is also really, really cool. But to get back into this question, guys, there's these micro steps along the way that have to be done to get evaluated, to go on a visit, right? To have that interest, right? These are all things that need to be done as far as the journey of these college coaches to better know who your son is, to be able for them to feel like they can trust your son and they know what they're going to get if they do offer them or offer your son, right? So these are things that go through these college baseball coaches' minds when ultimately they're recruiting your son. So hopefully that helps. I'm going to change it back over to red. And then let's get to the next question. Guys, if you have any baseball-related questions, I urge you to ask your questions just like some individuals over on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram are doing. Okay, so has anyone ever clearly told me where I stand nationally or regionally? So funny enough, Perfect Game, right? Who has heard of Perfect Game? Anybody in the chat has heard of Perfect Game? More than likely you have, because these tournaments and showcases have become an authority in youth baseball. They're also starting very, very young. I see sometimes on Perfect Game's profile, like as young as 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, and in my opinion, very, very young to start taking baseball and nationally ranked teams seriously. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not, but just from my experience, I think baseball and travel ball circuit needs to be very, very competitive. Without a doubt, you want competitive baseball. That's how you grow and develop. You don't develop by playing against, your local church team, because that isn't going to help you. But ultimately, these Perfect Game events, I think they need to be very concentrated on high school ball. Anything beyond or before high school ball kind of just turns into a weekend getaway for most families. But great question, Gavin. I'm going to hit on that here in a second. But basically, when the one time that anyone has ever technically told me where I stood nationally and regionally was Perfect Game. I got a 9.5 grade after I did a showcase. And that's when I also topped out at 90. My 60 time was like a 7.4, which is not good. And then basically across the infield, we didn't do exit velocity back then, so like that's taken into account into these Perfect Game rankings now. I'd say in the state of Florida, this was all, by the way, right-handed pitcher. People didn't really view me as a shortstop, funny enough, because I got drafted by the St. Louis Cardinals and I played with the Padres as well as a shortstop, as a third baseman. But in the state of Florida, I'm pretty sure I was like under the top 15 right-handed pitchers in the state of Florida. As far as like in the USA, I think I was like under the top 300 as far as high school ranks, right? With like some of these numbers, you would think like you should be higher, but like there's a lot of high school baseball players that throw 90. And that's a commonality nowadays, because players are using science to develop their skills, to make their games that much better, right? We want to ultimately develop as quickly as possible, and sometimes developing too quick has its drawbacks, especially with injuries and things like that. But I won't get into that right now, because I want to get into Gavin's question. What made you like baseball and want to go further? So honestly, I've always been a little bit of a loner, and that's okay. I've always been by myself a lot of the times, especially with my development, especially by playing wall ball. And I found peace in kind of like that solitude of just being alone, playing wall ball, listening to music. I remember when the iPod came out, I would always listen to music and basically play wall ball for hours on hours on hours. So there wasn't any particular thing that made me love it, other than probably the experiences of like being a kid, going to Camden Yards for the very first time, watching the Baltimore Orioles play, and that feeling of just like opening up the stadium, seeing all the fans, feeling the buzz of the stadium. These are all things that made me like have the bigger dreams and goals to achieve those things. But honestly, I always wanted to mimic my game after those guys that were in the big leagues, and I always wanted to play at such a high level of competition. I'll never forget, I once said when I was like in middle school, man, like why aren't the other kids on my team able to make those diving plays and like turn a double play? Like I was really frustrated at a certain time in my development and in my game where my team wasn't able to like turn double plays, because I saw that on the TV and I was like, man, we should be able to turn double plays by now. Like what's going on? What's holding us back? And ultimately what it comes down to is, like the runner runs too fast and the infielders don't have quick enough hands or a good enough arm to be able to turn double plays, right? So I always wanted more. I always wanted more eyeballs on me. I wanted a better competition. I wanted the game to be more challenging. And don't wish for that too soon, because the game will get challenging. The game will be difficult. Pitchers are going to constantly be throwing 90 miles an hour with wicked, off-speed pitches. So, like, be careful with what you ask for. Great question, Gavin, by the way. And guys, feel free to ask these questions if you're on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. 210B1G, what was the most humbling thing you have ever been told in your career? Humbling. Humbling. I would say, so there's a time at NC State, and some people might know this story, some people probably don't, because I haven't shared this too many times, but there was a time where we were in the fall time. It was a fall, and this was like before the season was started, and I was a junior, right? And this was basically when I got drafted, because the junior year is just when you have a lot more draft stock, and also you have a lot more leverage in the draft and getting a higher signing bonus, right? So this was my fall time at NC State. It was my junior year, and I remember our coach at the end of practice told us to run laps around the field, right? And one thing that I remember, I don't know if it was like bugging me or if I felt like a nagging thing like in my heel or whatever the case may be, but I didn't love running, like long distance running with metal cleats on. For anyone that knows running with metal cleats, like it's not the best thing to do, especially if you're going to be running 4, 5, 6 laps like we were doing at the end of practice. So, me being a little bit more cautious of taking care of my body, which our head coach at NC State wasn't necessarily like that type of mind. He was just like, go do the work, don't complain type. And basically what I went ahead and did is I changed my cleats for turfs. And I remember I started like a good 200 feet behind everyone else. And it was me and one other player, right? And I was jogging probably the same rate or the same pace as everyone else, but I was like 200 feet behind everyone else, right? So I think 200 feet is like they're basically starting on the right field foul pole, and I'm just now getting out of the dugout, right? And we keep that pace for probably like 2 laps, and I'm not able to sprint and basically catch up to everyone else. But basically, our head coach got really, really upset with me because I didn't get everyone together and run as a group. And what your question was like, what was the most humbling thing, is like he kind of shared the importance of, if we're gonna run, if we're gonna be in the ditches together, make sure that we're doing those things together, right? If we're running after practice, let's do it together. You don't be the one slacking, especially since you're a junior, especially since you're about to get drafted, especially because you should be a leader. These were the like learning experiences that I needed to be told in my baseball career to be able to be a professional at that next level. So there were humbling experiences without a doubt in college, especially when I was a pitcher, that things were just very, very difficult. So yeah, these things are just like to be expected. As far as pro ball, wasn't necessarily hard for me. I got myself accustomed to pro baseball fairly quickly, because one thing that I feel like I did better than most is getting accustomed to the wood bat, right? So a lot of people don't know this, but like when you transition from the NCAA with metal, very, very quickly, basically at the halfway through the season, in the professional season, this is like the first half, and then this is the second half, right? The second half of the season, this is pro ball, and this is when you have to use wood. So like going from metal to wood halfway through your season can be difficult for some. For me, I felt comfort in that, because one thing that I would do always at NC State before getting drafted was I would always use a wood bat in any cage work, right? And a lot of high school baseball players would tell me this, is basically at the high school level, coaches do not allow wood bats during BP. And to some extent, I don't love that, right? I think if a player wants to use a wood bat, awesome. But also, if you're hitting the ball 100 feet and that's your maximum distance, just use metal, right? Just don't basically, if you're constantly hitting 100 feet in distance with a metal bat, don't make it harder for yourself by using a wood bat. And now you're hitting at 80 feet, right? No one enjoys watching batting practice when it looks like you're using a wet newspaper. So let's just use metal bats for the most part in on-field BP. Now, if we're on-field BP and we want to use a wood bat, the only time I would say that that's acceptable is if we're doing that extra work on our own where maybe the coaching staff isn't there. If the coaching staff allows you to use wood bats during team batting practice, then go for it, right? But one thing that I always like to do is if I wasn't in the game, if I wasn't in on-field BP with the entire team, I would always be using a wood bat. So that way, like I showed you right here, guys, is like when I made that transition between college and pro ball, I was able to transition from metal to wood fairly easy. And that's when, let's delete this out. That's when, like, in that short season, that second half of my season, my 2017 season, that's when the second half alone, I think I hit 339 between rookie ball and low A. So rookie ball, I think I hit like, I want to say it was like 380, which is pretty crazy going from college ball and the college competition to rookie ball. Weirdly enough, it was kind of like a demotion in a weird way. And if you don't know what a demotion is, it's basically you're getting demoted from like one level to a lower level. Because rookie ball, this was where a lot of like 18-year-old high school players were going. And a lot of the pitchers especially had usually one pitch. And that's, basically something that I can dive deeper into if you guys want to. But having one pitch is basically you only have one pitch. You only have a fastball. You're only able to throw 94. But your off speed, kind of flat, kind of trash. You leave it in the zone, you hang it, and that's where I was able to, really do damage. But I hit 380 in rookie ball. In low A, I think I hit like 280 in like 20 games. So in combination, it was like 339 or something like that. Yeah, pretty fun season right here. This was in State College, Pennsylvania. That was with the State College Spikes when they were the low A affiliate of the St. Louis Cardinals. And that was the first ever pro team that I ever played on, which is pretty cool. So, yeah, guys. Also, if you are over on YouTube, let me know, just because I'm really curious on where you guys are from and who I'm talking to. Give me a chat over on YouTube. Let me know what state you're from and maybe like what grade you or your player is in, just so I can like better suit this this live to everyone. But yeah, guys, let's see. Watching together with my son, and he exercises in the living room. He's currently in middle school. Any tips on how to be prepared or ahead of the curve by the time becomes a freshman year of high school? So this is actually a really common question because this is what kind of comes alive most on case study interviews that I have with a lot of my students, even though that they're in high school. So think about this, like a lot of high school players, sophomores, juniors, and seniors will tell me that they haven't done certain movements that I provide inside my academy. So what does that really tell you? For the most part, I'd say 96% of all baseball players, that's a percent sign, are doing more generic lifts. Bench, right, is a generic lift. Deadlift. Squat. Right, these are easy things to do. Curls, right? Why are we doing curls if we're playing baseball? Maybe shoulder press. And the reason why we do these is because they look either cool or because we see a bodybuilder do them. So really what we're doing, and by all means, we do lifts in these categories, but one thing that we do is we modify them to incorporate other parts of our body to ensure that we have more athletic movements. So for example, let me just draw this out and maybe it'll make sense for you guys. I'm gonna do my best to, that's your typical, bench press. Let's actually do this. That's your typical bench press, right? Boom, 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 right? Maybe it's something like that, right? That's a, bench press, bench, right? You could, of course, like sit on it like this with your legs right here and then bench press upwards, right? That is a typical bench press. Maybe you should be, if, you're taking care of your shoulder, if you're taking care of your arm, you want to be doing more dumbbells more than straight bar, by the way. Straight bar is just going to be putting a lot more pressure on shoulder. But one thing that we would do is like we would put our shoulders right here, and that way our legs were right here, right? And what we would do is bench press up that way. And the reason for that is now the only stability that we have right here, that's our head, these are our arms that we're pressing that way. Now the only stability that we have is on our shoulder blades, basically. Now we're engaging not only our hamstring right here, let's do a different color to like kind of really prove the point. We're engaging really our glutes right here by staying in that bridged position, right? We're also engaging, our core, our six pack, right there. And then on top of that, we're engaging our chest, right? And that's a very typical movement that I would say in pro ball. And these are the things that, typically speaking, you are simply just like neglecting in the overall development of a high school baseball player. Like you're doing the typical bench, but you're not incorporating things that incorporate your core, not doing things that incorporate your glutes, while doing that same bench movement, right? So I'm not saying also by any means that I have all the answers. I am a baseball player at the end of the day, guys. I think it's really important to know that like I said, guys, I don't have the answers. I don't have the answers because, again, I was told what to do in my professional journey. So I was basically told, do these exercises right here. And then I became basically a robot, right? Boom, 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 boom. And I would execute what was on these lifts, right? I would just do the work. There was no thinking about it. There was no like, oh, should I do this or should I not do this? Because once I got to the college ranks, I knew for a fact these individual strength coaches have a kinesiology degree. They know what they're doing. They're incorporating rotational strength movements that incorporate core, and they are baseball specific. So these are the things that I always trusted them. And because I was at a level where I could trust them, right? Sometimes at like maybe it's a high school program or a college program, you can't necessarily trust these sports strength coaches because a lot of them are just giving you football exercises, and these football exercises aren't going to be the most productive for baseball. So again, guys, when I was in college and pro ball, somebody else wrote that, and while on the other hand, that's me, right? So this is over here, strength and conditioning coach, because they know what to incorporate in certain times. They know also about my volume. For those that don't know, volume of lift is basically the sum of reps and sets. For example, you can do 1 rep times 100 sets, and that equals like 100 volume technically. Or you can do 100 reps for 1 set, and it's technically the same thing. It's going to be a little bit more difficult because this is more of a conditioning exercise, and this is more of a strength exercise. We can definitely do, if we're doing 1 rep at 100 sets, we could probably do, let's just call it for a simple bench press, I could probably do 70, right? Like if I just do 1 rep, okay, wait a second, do another rep, right? But on the other hand, if I had to do 100 reps, I'm probably only going to be able to do 20. So now if we do 70 times 100, that's like 7,000. If we do 20 times 100, that's 2,000, right? Right? So now we can see the difference in volume because of the weight, the reps, and the sets. So that these calculations, guys, I know, again, if this is an iceberg, I know this much about strength and conditioning. And that's why inside my academy, we have a strength and conditioning coach from the New York Mets organization that writes those programs for us. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, trying to tell you guys that I know everything about strength and conditioning, because I don't. I was this robot. And that's something that mentally you need to think about with where you are at or with where your son is at. Can your son become that robot of executing the specific movement that the strength coach is providing. And a lot of the times when I was in college, I was shell shocked because these are newer movements that I haven't been accustomed to yet. So it's very difficult to get these things in motion, so to speak, because if you're never getting used to them, it's going to be pretty difficult for you to learn them. But all right, guys. If you're joining in over on Instagram, feel free to let me know what state you guys are in. I'm really curious, just because I want to make sure that, sometimes it's really cool. I've asked that before on some webinars, like on Zoom, and we've had people internationally from France, Italy, Dubai. We even have 2 students in Japan, guys, which is really cool. I was having a DM conversation with a student from Japan, which was really cool. I think he probably found me through one of my Japanese students, Hugo. But yeah, guys, if you're interested in working one-on-one with me through my remote training program, you can always click the link in my bio, learn a little bit more about who I am, what I am, how I could possibly help you out. One thing that I would like to do, though, just so that you guys get some understanding also, what I do inside my program. One thing that I'm going to go ahead and do is actually just change this up to computer. And then that way I can change it up to that. And, we got Texas in the house. Let's go. I'll move that over there. And then we're going to go back to this. All right. So you guys should be able to see me now. You should be able to see the screen. I'm just going to go through a quick little presentation because I think you guys deserve it. And this is the type of valuable content that I want to be able to provide you each and every day as much as possible. So in this video, I'm going to explain why you are not on any college coach's radars. Your structure is non-existent. Your development has plateaued, and you're constantly in your thinking in your own head, like, am I even good enough to play college baseball? This is a very common thing that I did when I was in high school as well. Mentally, it's very challenging. But all of those things typically lead to not taking action, not emailing college coaches and trying to create like the perfect program, especially in the gym, trying to figure it out all by yourself and bouncing around from maybe travel ball teams or high school teams and maybe, private lessons and coaches and things like that. And sometimes that just creates a dependency on those coaches and really a lack of overall confidence. And that's unfortunate because you're training really hard. You and your family have invested a lot in this journey and you're way better than the competition. And you know what it's like when things are going great, but all of a sudden, whatever you were doing, especially in those middle school to freshman, sophomore year, it felt like you were an absolute stud, maybe in 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And then all of a sudden it no longer works. And here's the harsh truth. You need better structure to what you are actually doing, but not the structure you think. You need structural guidance. All right. So if we're talking about sleep and exercise, teens that have a regular sleep schedule, and yes, it sounds very boring, but if you have a regular sleep schedule, you'll be given basically a 40% more likelihood to be in a regular, fitness routine. Now, if we're talking about just fitness, obviously that's great. But that's where a lot of people just don't realize what they're doing by not sleeping. And sleep is important, guys. I'm not going to tell you that it's not. Sleep is always going to be important. So having that routine is important. So structure is essential to be great in anything, and really distractions are everywhere. And competition, as you guys know, is everywhere. Players are more sophisticated. College baseball coaches are more sophisticated, and players are also doing their research and they're training back with science, which is leading to that ultra competitive climate, making it even harder to land a college baseball offer. You might be feeling this already with the transfer portal, with all the different things that are going on. So this is why you're lighting your money on fire by forcing you or your player through an old school approach, which is really private lessons every single week. Maybe we're just neglecting the mental development. Maybe you're being a little bit more passive, letting college coaches find you rather than you finding them. Maybe you think that it's better to just, I'll figure this out later, right? Maybe you're going to a personal trainer rather than a sports-specific trainer and not following a baseball-specific program. And if you don't believe me, look at the most common stat that's really being shown across so many different, on TV, on this, on that. Guys, if you don't believe me, look up the average fastball velocity. And as you can see, like, it's been trending up, and this is only until 2022. You can better believe that these past 4 years, it's gone up to probably 95, 96 as an average fastball velocity. But this is also important because, like, if we're just talking about velocity, a lot of high school baseball players might fall into the trap of like, oh, I want to throw 85 miles an hour. Well, cool. When you set those goals, think back to when you wanted to throw 80 miles an hour and you achieved that goal. More times than not, if you've done anything great, what were your goals from day one? Probably not 80 or not even 75 or 85. More than likely, it was like, hey, I want to throw 50, right? You start small. And when you hit those goals, the work didn't stop once you hit those goals. Absolutely not. So your goalpost, if we're thinking about football, your goalpost will move as you continue to hit those goals and you consistently work to be great. And you or your player is not any different. And when we hit those goals together and land that college scholarship, guys, which happens for countless number of my students, you can go over to my wins page, the client case studies. You can see all the success that we've had inside the academy, helping players get to college. The work doesn't stop. And this is something that I really love to tell my students because they might feel like they're on top of Mount Everest for 24 hours, but that feeling will go away. And it is important mentally to make sure that the work never stops. So this is also known as the arrival fallacy, and a lot of parents that probably are listening to this right now, like, you know, if we're talking about, you know, fitness, hey, I want to weigh 200 pounds, right? Typically after you hit that goal, you'll hit newer targets, or you'll want to hit newer targets and create more goals. So when more goals are achieved, more achievement and also more success. And after playing 7 years of professional baseball and working out at the gym for almost 20 years of my life, and I also landed that D1 scholarship, guys, I've created that trusted, streamlined path that develops your player in the shortest time possible. This is mixing the physical, mental, and recruiting that I'll cover here in a second inside the triple play, which is, as you can tell, all three of those. And this is really a one-of-a-kind player development system that attracts high-level college baseball coaches. And it educates them on who your player is, showcases them that correct process, and leverages a simple strategy that helps you build education, that mindset, and that structure long before your son even lands that college scholarship, which really means that triple play thrives with that structural guidance, right? And it's the easiest, most simple, and best long-term approach if we're trying to achieve those big dreams and goals of landing a college baseball offer, which really enables you to develop physically, mentally, and commit to that D1 program here in the future. So the triple play, guys, the way that I really trained when I was in high school really incorporated the competitiveness in the mental side, and also making sure that I'm doing the physical workouts that I learned in college and pro ball. And ultimately, I was constantly increasing my baseball IQ. And that helped me earn three multiple college offers to my top three schools: UVA, NC State, and Rice. It also helped me gain that confidence, because a lot of people don't like to talk about how you have to prepare with these conversations to college coaches, and making sure that you can talk the game of baseball. It also helped me understand what to do specifically in the gym. And it really took me from who are you in the whole college recruiting process, and you're not good enough to maybe even play on the A team of my travel ball team, which happened, to I'll be at your game, and now you get to choose where you want to go. And that is a true story, guys. My travel ball coach, once I got promoted up to the A team of my travel ball organization back in 2013, shook my hand after a dominant performance and said, hey, you get to choose what D1 baseball program you want to go to, which I thought was a pretty cool experience, because I had 0 offers on the table and I kind of just trusted him. Long and behold, 3, 4, 5 days later, I received an offer from my top school, and then snowball domino effect, got 2 more from my top 3 schools all together. So the triple play can be broken down into 3 key components. But if you are new here, if you're new to these lives, I am streaming every single day for 50 straight days, and today is day number 10. My name is Evan Mendoza, and I'm quite literally that baseball guy who talks mentality, development, and even recruiting. And I even founded my own online academy called the Mendoza Baseball Academy, and I help serious high school baseball players play at the next level, looking for that experienced coach, maybe looking for that recruiting guidance, or looking for that physical and mental development. Most importantly, I hope you land the right college scholarship instead of landing a baseball scholarship. I don't know if some of you guys create those low goals of, like, sometimes on eligibility reviews, I'll ask students, hey, what level of college do you want to play at? Well, I'll just do whatever comes my way. I could care less. I just want to play college baseball. That's, I think, very, very vanilla of a goal, and it's not specific enough to really achieve those big dreams and goals. So my students like Caden, Sebastian, Jack, Johnny, George, Riley, Christian, and many more of my serious players are using this exact strategy to be able to play at the next level. But you don't have to listen to me. I have played at the highest levels for 7 years. Like that is something to be said for. I've been able to play with the St. Louis Cardinals organization for 6 years. That's a picture of me with Albert Pujols, which I think is pretty cool because he was a childhood hero that I used to watch on TV when I was a young kid. And I also played with the San Diego Padres for 1 year, played 3 years at the D1 level in the ACC at NC State University. And that's actually me hitting a walk-off against Duke on a Friday night. I studied aerospace engineering, and I was also a 4-year starter on my high school baseball program. And I'm really just here to try sharing as much of that knowledge with you guys as much as possible. It's not easy to be able to share all that knowledge with you guys because that's the reason why I'm doing these lives, is because you can't share all of that knowledge in a short 3-second brain rotted video. So like, I'm here doing it live because, number one, you can tell that I'm a real human being that actually helps out high school baseball players. And I've been able to enjoy that success both on the field and off the field thanks to the triple play. So let's get into it, guys. The physical development. So what do all these players have in common? Pete Alonso, Juan Soto, Randy Arozarena, Manny Machado, Tatis, Adolis, Goldie. Well, beyond the fact that I've actually been on the same team or the same field as these individuals, they're all absolutely built. Pete Alonso, 6'3", 245 pounds. Juan Soto, 225 pounds. Machado, 218. Tatis, 217. Randy, he's built even though he's 5'11". Adolis, 6'1". By the way, Randy and Adolis are hilarious together. They're lifetime friends. But Goldie, he 225, 6'3", right? These guys are built. If you want to play at the highest level, you have to build yourself into an absolute machine, right? Again, guys, they're all physically built, and being just a good baseball player doesn't cut it anymore. So the first thing a college coach will do to see if you actually pass that eye test, and the eye test is a test if you fill out your uniform correctly. So you've probably seen a bat boy before who doesn't really fill out their uniform, and all love the bat boys, but Max Muncy looks a little bit better than the bat boy, and that is the eye test. It's just how your jersey will fit on you. So I provide you structured gym workouts that are baseball specific. Of course, at the end of the day, we are baseball players. We're not softball players. We're not, tennis players. We're not gymnasts, right? That are baseball specific, that are quality, right? And they're also written by a New York Mets strength and conditioning coach, which I think is pretty cool. And this is an example of one of our workout programs. It is pretty in depth. So it's something that I just think is really, really important. Because if you're just doing workout programs and you don't understand really the source of who it's coming from, that can be a huge issue because you don't know who, is providing you this value. I have made that mistake in the past, so just a heads up. As far as the mental development, I want a frictionless way for my students to be able to learn the game. So that's the structure that I've learned with the Cardinals and the Padres. They take into account structure. And with these mental strength coaches, by the way, like mental strength coaches, really, really cool because they were sometimes ex-Navy SEALs, so had a ton of experience. And the best way to really learn is through a structured approach, and that way it's easy to follow along. So you might think that you have to watch hours and hours of baseball to be able to learn the game, but all you really need to do is 5 or 10 minutes before practice, before a game, to really get into your baseball mode. And there are distractions at every turn with social media, with video games, Netflix. All of which can brain rot you and eat you away from the time that you need to be providing baseball, right? So you need to avoid this hamster wheel by using your time to be productive to achieve your dreams and your goals, right? So now, if you actually do those two things with the physical and the mental development, you're a high school baseball prospect strategically using your days to now develop your skills rather than a scrub trying to play catch up on the physical and mental and trying to be better than that competition. So we're talking about the baseball IQ and the curriculum. This is just an example of like the velo throwing program. We want to make sure that we understand concepts like when to shut it down, finding the routine, a band routine, throwing programs, arm care, weighted ball program, how to gain accuracy. These are all things that I teach in my teaching style of GIFs. So they're like 2-second looping videos. I'm up there in the top right explaining the specific concept. So that way you're able to visualize the specific movement so you can implement it into your ultimately you can implement it into your routine. Now, this is probably the most exciting part for a lot of you guys is the recruiting guidance. So let's walk through it real quick, because the recruiting guidance, my students can efficiently reach out to these college coaches with a single click of the button. This is because I teach an outreach system which is efficient, which personalizing each and every single one of our emails, and that way we're not copying and pasting communication. The Triple Play is really designed to educate college coaches on who you or your son is, what you bring to the table for that specific coach, and how to provide those resources when they raise an eyebrow. We need to redirect them on who they are. This removes any question if you're actually a legit high school prospect, which means less time, you follow a structure, and now you're landing that college commitment. I call this the recruitment blueprint, all right? This is also the tracker, the outreach tracker that we teach inside the academy as far as opening, clicking, and responding. We also share an email template, so that way my students know exactly what to do. And then as far as video editing crash course, social media training, and really once built out, this should be all managed by one person, the player, right? And that's because it relies more on the system rather than doing a bunch of busy work trying to figure it out by yourself, which means more opportunities, less headache, and more college offers. And you must do all of this. Yes, you absolutely must do all of this if you want to survive in today's very competitive field, right? If you want to be structured in your baseball career, also beyond high school into college. So really, I have the question to ask you guys, like, do you have the time to figure it all out? What if I just gave you everything inside the Triple Play for yourself? And the same one that has led me to that 7-year pro career and choosing the right D1 program rather than a college program. And what if I could help you get launched up in 2 weeks or less? And guys, that is why I have built out the Mendoza Baseball Academy. I want to work one-on-one with either you or your player. Ideally the player though, because all of my students, I work one-on-one with the player and help you in that high school journey. So it includes the development side of things with the sprinting program, mobility modules, workout programs, daily checklists, increasing baseball IQ with the pro defense course, the velo throwing program, the recruiting guidance with the email templates and the outreach system and all that fun stuff, and also the private community. And I see myself as more as like an agent, an advisor, more than anything in your player's career. And your problems become my problems, and also your goals become my goals. And really the Triple Play is different for every single one of my players. And that's where a lot of people will ask me like, well, what's the cost of the academy? And it's like, well, there's different versions of programs, and I'm not into the belief of like everything needs to be a one size fits all. Like, I don't think that is right. If everything is a cookie cutter approach, we're not going to see the results that we've seen so far. I don't know if you guys believe that or not, but like a freshman in high school is going to be different than a senior in high school. The time commitment, the amount of help that is needed for the senior is going to be dramatically different, and especially the focus of that work is going to be dramatically different than the senior, right? So we need to think that, and everyone comes to me at a different stage in their high school journey, right? So I'm not going to come in and change everything that you guys are doing. You've seen some level of success, and really the Triple Play is molded around that. And if you're watching this video, you've probably seen that success already in you or your son's playing career. And what I'm really designed to do inside the Triple Play is, with my experience, I want to identify what's working, what's not, and I want to mold that Triple Play around you guys. And that's the way that I've been able to work with some of my clients, like, RJ getting his 5.10.5 time down like 0.8 seconds. I think this was Kale. His velo jumped about 8 miles an hour, which is crazy. Aiden balled out in front of a Brave Scout, which is pretty cool at the high school level. Enzo landed a college commitment. Jorge asked a pretty great question as far as situational hitting, and I created that video for the entire community, because when one student asks a question, it's very important that I go into a deep dive on that and share it with everyone, because if I'm able to share that with everyone, more people probably have that same question. That way we're able to learn that much quicker, right? It's kind of like in the classroom. Like, I never liked raising my hand and asking a question, but if someone else had that same question, I was like, let's go. I didn't have to ask that question, right? So that's the same psychology, where if one person asks a question, I want to make sure that I answer it for everyone. Tristan was on varsity as a freshman, already getting that college interest. And this is Pete, Santiago's dad. Santiago has changed. Really appreciate what you're doing with him, right? Don't just take my word for it, though. You can check out all the student wins on my website. You can also check out all the college commitments. You can also go to all the case studies as well to see that I'm not lying about this. You can actually hear it directly from my students, as you can see right there. So go down below. If you're on YouTube, below this video, you'll see a link to actually schedule out an eligibility review. And that's one of the very first steps where we assess where you're currently at as far as your current situation. Identify those bottlenecks, identify those goals that you guys have, and if we can even help install the triple play, we'll let you guys know. We'll explore on what you guys are doing on and off the field, on the physical, mental, and development, on the approaches, and really break down the recruiting game plan that you guys need to be able to hit your goals, not only on the physical but also on the recruiting side. So by the end of the call, this is one thing that I think a lot of people just don't realize. By the end of the call, you'll know like at least 2 or 3 steps on exactly what you need to do to become that much better, right? And most people will tell us at the end of the call, like, thank you for your time. Thank you for this review, because it's one opportunity that you guys really get to like zoom out on what's going on and analyzing your overall development. So worst case, you'll leave with a clear game plan based off of my professional career. And best case, we'll find that mutual fit as far as which specific program inside the academy we can help you guys out best with. Either way, there's really no risk in booking that eligibility review. The only risk you guys have is doing nothing at all. I want to say that again, because like really at this stage, you have 3 opportunities if you're looking for the help. You can work with us, you can work with someone else, or you can do nothing. The real risk is doing nothing. If you want to chase your dreams and your goals, doing nothing is not going to help you get to those dreams and goals by any means. So to continue with that struggle of the inconsistent workout programs, the inexperienced coaches in your area, and maybe that increased competitiveness out there on the field as far as college recruiting, like how much longer can you really afford to wait through that process? How much more of it can you actually take? So guys, go below this video. If you're on YouTube, click the link to schedule out your eligibility review. If you're on Instagram, just click the link in my bio. You're going to see a very similar video as this slide deck. But again, guys, if you're unsure, just go ahead and schedule out that review. We'll reach out if it isn't a fit. And then after you'll book, you'll actually be redirected to watch a couple other videos in a pre-call checklist. I walk through like timeline and what exactly your pathway should look like. Also, I'll review some frequently asked questions. So it's very thorough. That way, before even the call, if you realize like, hey, this is not a good fit for us, that's awesome. That's fine. Go through those videos. That way you know if this is going to be a fit or not. So below this video, go ahead and schedule out your eligibility review today. So that way we can see if we can even help you guys out. But for the remainder of this live for the next 10 minutes, I want to go ahead and answer any questions that you guys have as far as the Triple Play program, or any questions whatsoever on baseball development that I can answer for you guys. Again, that's what these lives are for. I want to make sure that I'm giving you guys as much valuable content as possible. So that way we can just like better understand if we can even help you guys out with everything that you've got going on. It's one of the most important aspects of the live is for you guys to ask questions. And then that way I can make sure that it's very specific to your guys' situation. So I don't want to give you guys like vanilla, bland answers. Also, like I see like 8 people over on YouTube. I don't know who you 8 people are, but I love you. I love you guys, like seriously, like family, because you're hanging out with me right now. You could be doing anything else in the world. Guys, if you are an Instagram live viewer and you like this type of content, please, this is just a simple ask that I have of you guys. It's not going to cost you any money. It's not going to cost you really much of your time. Head over to my YouTube page. All right. I'll make it easy for you guys, I think, because if you go to my link in bio and scroll all the way down, you'll see the icons for Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, X, and LinkedIn. Click the middle one. It's for YouTube. All right. That's going to take you over to my YouTube channel. And just make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. That is the only ask that I have of you guys, because if you do that, and by the way, Sam, if you're not able to make these lives at 11, the recording is on YouTube. That's another reason why you guys need to subscribe to me over on YouTube. I was just mentioning how basically on YouTube, we have like 9 current viewers, and you guys are awesome, because on YouTube, I feel like you guys are like the tightest knit community. So if you're listening to this on YouTube and you want to drop like an emoji or a a strong emoji or something like that, go ahead and do that. But seriously, guys, subscribe to me so that way. One thing you will also get notifications for is an email when I do go live. I'm pretty sure that's how like YouTube is set up. So that way, like, you'll be reminded that I'm going live and you can hop in, you can ask your questions. Guys, if you are on Instagram right now, you're listening to this live, you want even better content that's out there, you want to be able to flip your phone horizontally and actually learn something rather than brain rotting and actually learn the game of baseball, guys, subscribe to me over on YouTube. That way we can get a better understanding of, some of these concepts. Also watch some of my YouTube content, guys. I'm going all in on YouTube, especially these lives. I want to be able to provide the best baseball content to you guys. And to be honest with you guys, like I told you earlier, I cannot, for the life of me, and this is just like a heart-to-heart again, guys, I cannot share the 7 years of pro experience that I've been able to accomplish and the 3 years that I spent at the D1 level. I can't condense that into a 10-second reel. I like, for the life of me, I can't do it. I've tried so hard to like give you guys valuable content. And some of the sad thing is, like, a lot of that content is being pushed out to more and more and more and more and more people, because a lot of people will engage with that content, like that comment on that content, share it to their stories because it's easy. And one thing I want to, of course, we have a few more minutes here before the live wraps up. And by the way, we're doing lives every single day for 50 days. Today is day 10 of 50. The reason that I want to do these lives is because I want to be able to share those more, like those smaller stories that mean something to you, so you can implement that into maybe your baseball story as well. I'll never forget like the pro guys that I would try to always hang around with when I was in middle school. Like I truly think like it was that mindset of, even though I'm 10 years old, even though I'm 12 years old, even though I'm 14 years old, I always wanted to hang out with those guys that played pro ball, because I wanted to hear how they talked. I wanted to hear what a fastball with ride means. Like what does that mean? I heard you say that a couple times. Like, what does ride mean, right? Learning and picking up on the verbiage of how baseball players talk, I think, is important as a young baseball player. So if it's as little as just knowing how I talk about the game of baseball, that's great, right? But really, the thing is, I can't share my 7 years of pro baseball experience and 3 years at the D1 level into a 5, 10, 30-second reel. I want to be able to share you guys a lot more value and a lot more implemented value as possible. And the way that I do that, in my opinion, is to hear exactly where you guys are struggling with, hear exactly what your situation is, and then that way I'm not giving you a vanilla answer. I hate vanilla answers for the life of me, because like it can be applied to so many people. I want it to be applied specifically to you. Whoever's listening to this, if you're on Instagram, if you're on YouTube, I want this to be applied directly to you, because that's how you're going to see the most gains. That's how you're going to be able to develop more. That's how you're going to be able to throw harder, hit the ball farther, and run faster. Because whatever your specific situation is, something is probably holding you back. And I want to be able to self-assess, not necessarily self-assess, that would be assessing myself, but I want to be able to assess with what you're currently doing, so that way we can identify those gaps, identify those holes, and that way, potentially we're able to, work those issues out. So hopefully that like gave you guys some clarity on what I do for these, Sam. And by the way, like, these live streams, even though you're not able to make it at 11 a.m., they are recorded over on YouTube. So that's another reason, guys. If you're on Instagram right now, go ahead and share or subscribe over to me on YouTube. Leo, yo. We got Jonas in the building. Hey, what's up? Hope you're doing good. I'm going to do an exchange year in summer. What do you think I'm going to expect from the baseball season? Exchange year in the summer. Okay, so what does that mean, Jonas? Well, I want to dive deep into your specific situation as we're wrapping up. We only have about five more minutes left. So Jonas, make sure that you're quick hitting. What is an exchange year? What does that mean? Is an exchange year basically like a gap year in high school, or is that in between basically senior year of high school before freshman year of college? Is that like a gap year where you're not going to be doing baseball, not going to be doing anything, not going to be doing school? Because if that's the case, are you still having the intention of playing baseball? Are you still doing the baseball stuff? Are you training, or are you just completely taking like a gap year? That's something that I'm not entirely sure of what's going on. Jason, over on YouTube, what is your opinion on your program versus others where other services just offer doing all the recruiting work and all that is left for the player to do is respond to coaches? So, Jason, we actually do have a program like that. It's constructed like that. It's called the Full Ride Framework. The reason we don't talk about it as much is because it's only limited to players that we feel 1,000% confident we can actually deliver an offer to. By the way, like, we're not the ones offering the player. Basically, you have to hit certain metrics, right? Or not necessarily you, Jason, but your son. He has to be also grade qualified. So freshmen, we're not going to bring them in because they are not able to receive those offers, right? So yeah, of course, with the understanding of players putting in the work, absolutely. So that's their responsibility. It is basically a partnership, right? Like, we're doing this over here, but your son has to be doing this over here as well for it to really work. But no, like, the biggest area of like the Full Ride Framework is they have to be grade qualified. So right now we're typically taking in just juniors, very selective seniors, because typically if seniors have slipped this far, it's going to be an uphill battle for those seniors. So typically juniors right now is the bread and butter for the Full Ride Framework. Also, as far as like metrics, I'm curious, Jason, with where your son's metrics are, but like as far as 60 time, we want it to be like a 7.1 or lower. Arm velocity, we want it to be around 85 plus. And then exit velocity, we want it to be around like 94 plus off the tee with a wood bat. So like, these are just baseline metrics that we want certain players to hit. That being said, your player can, have those metrics. Your player can be a junior. He can fit the mold of what we are looking for. And that's, again, what I'm about to get into is why the eligibility review is so important. If he shows up on a Zoom call with us and he isn't prepared on what's going on, for lack of better words, he's just not interested in anything, like, we're not going to bring that student in. It doesn't make sense. It's a partnership at the end of the day, right? And that's our highest tier program. Like, there are programs out there that will promise every player, be careful of this, guys. They will offer every single player that guarantee that they will play, college baseball. In my opinion, be careful of those individuals, because if you are surrounding yourself with people that are telling it, like, guys, I'm 29 years old. I have no more eligibility left in baseball, considering I played pro ball. I could go to like an NCSA and they will tell me to my face they can help me get recruited, right? So like, be careful with people that blanket statement. Again, that's the reason why I hate vanilla answers so much, is because without knowing the player, without knowing what's going on, it's very difficult to be able to feel confident in what their progression will look like as far as on the recruiting side. That's why on the Full Ride Framework, very selective students are offered that on eligibility reviews. And if that's the case, one thing that I do want to say on that is, like, I'm the one. It's not a team member. It's not anyone. It's not another coach inside the program. It's myself that's actually writing out these emails. At the end of the day, your son just needs to show up prepared, be professional, perform. Like, those are the things I cannot do for him. I can, of course, open the door, create conversations. And by the way, like, some of these conversations are going to be using my network for. So like, I'm not going to open up that door to a player that is going to ruin my credibility as well, between coach and coach, right? That's just not going to be helpful whatsoever. So let's get back to Jonas real quick. So like the year, I'm coming in summer and leaving in summer the next year. Oh, wow. So that's a decent time away. No, I'm going to be in 11th grade and I want to keep playing. So I'm going to be in high school and I want to play baseball in high school. Yeah. So dude, your development individually by yourself has to be on point. Because if you're taking a full year away from baseball, especially in a very critical time like 11th grade, dude, this is where you're missing out on opportunities playing in front of the right coaches, and that's going to ultimately hurt you a ton. But one thing I'm going to go ahead and do, guys, is do a little bit of a recap, because I want to make sure that I share with people, especially on Instagram. What I like to always do is record kind of just like a recap of what we talked about. And then that way we can get this going. So, all right. So I'm going to go ahead here and record. And this is going to be usually the last thing that we do. So guys, join me in my live tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern. We're streaming every single day. excluding Sundays. Tomorrow's going to be day 11. All right, let's recap day 10 of 50, streaming every single day at 11 a.m. Eastern time. One thing we started off with is the offer is the biggest thing that we want to do, but there are these micro steps that have to happen along the journey to be able to receive that big, glorious offer. We were talking about Perfect Game and how there was one time that they were very transparent with me as far as where I stood nationally and locally, especially with my 9.5 grade that I was able to achieve. I think I was like, as far as a right-handed pitcher, which is funny because I was mostly an infielder in professional baseball. I think I was like in the top 15 and maybe top 300 nationally. There was a pretty fun story that I shared about my time at NC State and especially how we didn't run with the pack. I was talking about my transition from wood bat to, from metal bat to wood bat between my junior year of college and pro ball, and how basically some high school coaches won't allow high schoolers to use wood bats, which I think is kind of funny. But in this instance, what I talked about again was my second half of my season, how I balled out, which is really pro ball, my second half of my 2017 season after I got drafted. But I talked about also how 96% roughly of all high school baseball players are doing generic lifts that don't really incorporate a ton of athletic movements used for baseball. And mostly these high school baseball players are doing them just because they look cool. This was a fun little diagram that I was drawing as far as how we can modify a specific movement like bench press to incorporate different parts of our body and especially the core. And then last but not least, what I talked about is how typically in college and pro ball, a strength and conditioning coach is writing out exactly what we need to do, aka me over there, and I'm just a robot. I'm just doing the work, executing the specific moves, and I'm not doing football specific moves. At the end of the day, guys, I'm a baseball player, so I know only the very tip of the iceberg as far as strength and conditioning. That's where I let a strength and conditioning coach actually write out our programs inside my academy. We also talked a little bit about volume right there, but if you are interested in joining us tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern time, every single day, excluding Sundays, tomorrow is going to be day 11. Let's go. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to take off and hope to see you in the next one.
Welcome Evan Mendoza to the program.
Cardinals third baseman Evan Mendoza.
Giving it a look, finds the railing and he tumbles over, but he made the catch. Unbelievable, Evan Mendoza.
Gran jugada en Evan Mendoza, dos joyas defensivas.
Evan Mendoza makes a great
Rounded up the middle. Mendoza throws off the shortstop. Mendoza field spins.
Mendoza throw to first in time. Wow, what a play by Evan Mendoza. Short. Mendoza to second for one. Oh my word, you've got to be kidding.
Evan Mendoza.
For Mendoza.
Mendoza lifts one to left.
An inning.
Mendoza, that one's sailing back.